first of all, warm welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining our Young Finnish American Club online event for the very, very first time. And the theme is, of course, visions on sustainability. My name is Suvi, and I work as a cultural counselor, head of cultural affairs at the Embassy of Finland in Washington, D.C. I'm going to just very shortly tell you a couple of points. We're going to have wonderful speakers today. Thank you for the speakers already. And after each of the speaker has given their presentation, we will have a couple of questions. You can tell those questions by putting on your camera and mic and asking them directly, or you can do that also via chat. And I will be moderating the event, so I will be giving you the floor when it's time for the questions. So then you can ask a couple of questions for each speaker. This event will be recorded, and there's going to be a Twitter hashtag, which is YFA Club. So you can also participate in the conversation on Twitter. And our Susanna from the embassy will be sharing those details to you on chat. So you will have some information on the chat as well. And we, of course, also welcome your feedback on the event, and Susanna will share you on the chat how you can do that by contacting the embassy via email. Please also feel free to follow us on social media, and also there's going to be information on if you're interested in joining our newsletter list, so you get to information about our future event as well. Thank you already for our partners for this event, and I'm going to give the floor actually to the president of the Finlandia Foundation to tell you a couple of technical details. So Anne-Mari, please.
Okay, thank you, Suvi, and good morning to all here in the US, and good afternoon, Finland. I am very happy and thankful for our embassy for coordinating this event, and I really look forward to many more. I'm also pleased to see this large audience today. Suvi was talking about technical details. I would really say that they are housekeeping items, not really super technical, as that's not my forte. So one, as this event is done in a meeting format, to allow some live questions, it is important that all except the speakers stay mute during the presentation. Also, it's preferable, please turn off your videos. And for the best viewing, I recommend you select speaker view from the top right view button. So then the speakers are only shown. And when there's time for questions, please raise hand. You go under to the reactions and you find raise hand, and then Suvi will, as our moderator, she will pick a few questions as our time is very limited. You may also use chat function for questions, but we do not guarantee that everything will be answered there, but we are monitoring that. And as I said before, the presentation will be recorded, and it will be viewable later if all goes according to the plan. So we are ready to move on, and here we go. Suvi, back to you.
Thank you very much, Anne-Mari. And I'm just going to introduce you the Ambassador of Finland to the United States, Mr. Mikko Hautala. Prior his time here in the US, he has served also as the ambassador of Finland to Russia, and also, among other things, the foreign policy advisor to the president of Finland. So without further ado, I give you Ambassador Hautala.
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to this first Young Finnish American Club meeting or event. I am turning 50 this year, so I guess it means that I don't qualify as young Finnish American, but I try to be as young as possible. When we started to discuss this kind of club, Young Finnish American Club, the idea was with Anne-Mari actually that we need to organize a network for young people who have Finnish heritage, who are studying in the US, or living in the US, or people who have some special connection to Finland. Because basically the observation was that many of those ways of working and events that we did organize, or Finlandia Foundation did organize, they didn't always were kind of fully directed or targeted at the young audience. And then we basically decided that let's meet with the Young Leaders Board of the Finlandia Foundation. That was last summer. And we decided to ask young Finnish Americans that, what would you like to do? And then the response was loud and clear. Most of the people said that we would like to have something modern. We would like to network with other young or youngish Finnish Americans. We would like to get some also practical networking benefit out of this. We would like to know better Finnish companies who are working in the US. And we would also be interested in knowing perhaps if there are some job opportunities or possibilities also to work in Finland. So this kind of practical needs arose in the discussion. Then the topic of today, sustainability, was also one of the concepts that was discussed, and I think all the participants at that point also said that this is something that interests a lot here, and obviously Finland being, I think I'm not saying too much if I say that it's one of the countries which is, I think, on the avant-garde or has a kind of a leading edge on sustainability issues. And obviously this is part of our, not only our cultural diplomacy, but it's also part of our economic diplomacy, because as I said, Finnish companies are doing a lot in the sustainability, and I think they have a lot to offer for the US partners. So it's a really great pleasure to have a lot of participants from all across the US. And I checked the list. This is a really popular event, which really makes me happy. And as I said in the beginning, we are looking towards having a not only sustainable discussion, but also sustainable way of working with the young Finnish Americans, so that we could provide them with a networking platform that brings you together virtually, but also in person. That will also help you keeping a kind of lively contact with Finland, Finnish companies, Finnish institutions, and so to keep the flag of Finland flying also here in the US. So with these words, I once again welcome everybody, and I wish you all the really interesting events. And obviously, special thanks go to Anne-Marie and of course other speakers from our Finnish companies who are here today. I really appreciate your efforts and time that you give to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Ambassador Hautala. And just to tell a quick joke, we were laughing with the ambassador that we need to enlarge our studio a little bit, maybe for the future events. Yes, so warm thank you, of course, to our wonderful speakers today. And I will, without further ado, give the floor to Outi Honkatukia, who is the head of a climate policy unit at Finland's Ministry of the Environment. And Outi has extensive knowledge on Finland's national, but also EU and international climate issues and negotiations. She's one of EU's 3 lead negotiators for climate change. So Outi, looking very much forward to your presentation, and then we will have a couple of questions after that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for the invitation. So my name is Outi Honkatukia. I'm the head of the climate policy unit in the Ministry of Environment in Finland, and I'm going to say a few words about what we as the government are doing in terms of what our targets, our policies, and what are our actions. And if you look at our sort of the government program at the moment, we have a very ambitious climate targets. I mean, Finland aims to be carbon neutral by 2035 and carbon negative very soon after that. So how do you achieve that? Well, you have to accelerate emission reductions very rapidly, and also need to strengthen carbon sinks. The government is also very committed to reform the EU and our national climate policies to do our share of the global effort towards the Paris Agreement's a temperature goal to keep the temperature well below 2 degrees and aim towards the 1.5 degrees. We're also working very hard to transform EU policies so that the EU is indeed carbon neutral well before 2050. So obviously, since we have very ambitious national targets, it is indeed in our interest to make sure that the EU targets are very ambitious as well. But it's not just the EU that we want to perform very, very well. We also want to ensure that we actually implement what we pledge. So to make sure that we actually get the at least 55% emission reduction by 2030 in the EU legislation. But since global problems really require global solutions, it's absolutely crucial that we also get the G7 and the G20 countries on board. And I think this is really the year of ambition when we are really waiting for the non-European G20 countries to pick up their game and really sort of put forward more ambitious emission reduction targets for 2030. Now, it's not enough to just sort of have a very ambitious target, but you also need to make sure that in building on and implementing those targets, we need to keep everyone on board and to make sure that we actually build a carbon neutral society. Now, just a few words on our, and we kind of use carbon neutral and climate neutral interchangeably, even though they are not. So carbon neutral usually refers to carbon dioxide, CO2, whereas when we actually mean to be climate neutral, which means that we also have all the other greenhouse gases, not just the CO2, but also methane and so on. So the target is achievable, but it does sort of mean that we need to have a very strong leadership and innovation to create new jobs, and also to have the opportunities to increase a positive carbon footprint in going forward. This obviously requires a lot of new investments. Now, always good to look back and actually look at what does the data say when we're talking about climate policies. So Finland's greenhouse gas emissions actually reduced by 9% from 2019 to 2020, and 2020 being the latest year for which we actually have data. Now, this was obviously partly due to our ambitious climate policies, but also this change was caused by the winter we had, which was very warm. Also in the changes in the production structure of electricity, so just getting a lot more renewables on the markets. And also because of the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, the transport performance went down, so there's a lot less transport and traffic going around. The net sink, so actually looking at the difference between the land use in the land use sector. So the net sinks actually increased dramatically because there was a 5% drop in the fellings that specific years. Now, obviously, in going forward, we need a roadmap, and that's what we have. So what we've looked at is what are the sectoral targets and what we can actually get with the existing measures, and where we really need to pick up our game. So that we actually have a lot already in the pipeline in terms of the existing and planned measures, but we want to move further. So we're looking at an ambitious energy tax reform, also industry roadmaps. I mean, there's still a lot to do in the industry sector, looking at how to decarbonize our whole of the road transport sector, and also always talk about the non-ETS sector, which then means agriculture, transport and buildings and heating. So that actually is also a sector that really needs to do quite a bit more. In terms of the electricity and heat and industry, that's been kind of taken care of in the European Union by the EU level emission trading scheme. So that's perhaps an area where the government as such can or needs to put less focus on. So how do we do this in terms of getting the climate policy right in terms of sectors and plans? Well, I mean, from the EU level, we actually have a lot of these EU-wide instruments relating to the emission trading system to the effort sharing sectors, which is the agriculture, transport, and buildings. And then we have the third sector, which we call the LULUCF, which is basically land use change, and forestry. And for each of these large collection of sectors, we then have different strategies and plans, and all of these strategies and plans contribute to the climate neutral Finland 2035. I'm also very conscious of the time, so I'll move forward. This year we are finalizing a lot of the plans and legislation. So we will have a new climate act fairly soon, sometime this spring. Hopefully, we'll be giving to the Parliament. Also finalizing the medium-term climate plan 2035, climate and energy strategy, more towards the end of the spring. Working very hard also on the climate plan for the land use sector, and as well as the adaptation plan, which will come forward a bit later. Now, and this is, I think, just about my last slide, just a few examples of government actions and policies. So we have, and again, I mean, I guess sort of from the US perspective, these figures may look sort of in terms of finance may seem small in the scale of Finland. It's actually quite significant. So we have a sustainable growth program which actually has about 50% earmarked for climate action, supports households and firms, and also supports clean energy investments. We have ambitious energy tax reform. I mean, the ambition is that that always the cleaner choice would be cheaper than the polluting ones. So looking at clean solutions, we have reduced the tax rates for large-scale heat pumps and industry, and also looking at reducing fossil fuel subsidies. On clean solutions for transport, again, I mean, here Finland is a thinly populated large country, so looking here to support the purchase of electric vehicles, looking how to improve the functioning of public transport, and also providing finance for car conversion. So instead of petrol, your car would be running on biogas or ethanol. Looking at improved cycling and pedestrian infrastructure as well, and for example, the system that we have for company car tax benefits, looking to climate-proof that so that so that the incentive would be to get a low-emission vehicle. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Outi. Excellent. Now you have a very good chance to ask a couple of questions to Outi. You can also write a question in chat, or even turn on your camera and ask the question directly. So if you have a question, please just raise your hand, and then I can try to see who's first, which is pretty challenging since there is amazingly a lot of you, which is very big pleasure for us to see so many participants, and hopefully also actually Americans who are interested in Finland. So we of course welcome also the young US audience, or as the ambassador said, youngish. So are there any questions for Outi on what Finland is doing to get to the targets? Carbon neutrality by 2035, or was it so? Oh, Tommi, you have a question. Please go ahead.
Yes, hope you all can hear me. Thank you so much, Outi and Suvi. When I was watching the presentation, it's obviously when you're talking about sustainability, it needs to be industry-wide, country-wide. Everybody, every part of it contributes to decreasing emissions, and even carbon negativity is a new word to me. But I was thinking specifically for fossil-free transportation, in what ways the airlines might come into that. I know some of the regional airlines in Finland and Scandinavia are doing fossil or sustainable jet fuel now, but I wonder maybe even at a European level, in what way that kind of intersects with the airline industry.
So for the airlines, actually we have an EU-wide emissions trading scheme that also covers aviation. So all the internal EU flights are covered by that scheme. In addition, there are indeed a number of airlines that are using these sort of sustainable jet fuels, but at least at the moment, it's just that the the pricing isn't right, or the incentive, the price incentive isn't quite there. We're certainly also looking at what's happening at the international level in terms of ICAO, and from the Ministry of Environment perspective, we've been quite disappointed at the lack of progress in terms at the truly international level, because when you're looking at a global industry, obviously you would want the measures to be as global as possible. I think we, as all the other countries, will be implementing the CORSIA measures from the ICAO. But again, I mean, if you're looking at the credits that are coming to the system, they're perhaps not as environmentally high standard as one would hope. So I do think that, as all the other sectors have done massive emission reductions, it is really aviation and shipping that will need to do quite a bit more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is so many good questions in the chat, so I'm trying to raise just a couple of them so that you have a chance to reply, Outi. One question is, what would you say is the biggest hurdle Finland faces with reaching these goals? And another question is about nuclear energy. Are there more efforts to expand the nuclear energy generation at Olkiluoto beyond the third reactor? So maybe those two for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for very, very pertinent questions. On this, what's most challenging? You need to look at that from different levels. I would argue that the most challenging for politicians is any of these economic instruments. For example, increasing the tax on petrol that would then sort of affect their voters or their possibilities for re-elections. I mean, we know from the literature and we know from the theory that it's really the carbon pricing that works. So putting price on pollution, that's the most effective, but that also sadly seems to be the most difficult one for a lot of the decision makers to actually implement. The question on the nuclear energy, I think many of you on this call would know, there has been one nuclear power plant that's been under construction for quite some time in Finland, and we are indeed hoping that it will finally be operational fairly soon this year. As far as I know, there are no sort of further investment plans in the immediate pipeline, but obviously, I mean, Finland sees and considers nuclear energy as a very important medium-term solution in terms of being able to achieve carbon neutrality and carbon negativity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Outi. There are so many good questions in the chat that I'm so sorry that I think we would need a session for Outi alone. I don't know if you have a chat possibility, but if you see a question where you would like to, pick it up in the chat, of course, feel free to write some answers if there's something you'd like to touch base on the chat. But thank you, Outi, very much. And now we go to the next speaker, who is Theodor Rolf van den Baumen from Neste. And Theodor is the head of communications for Neste in North America. He's a battle-tested communications professional and has more than a decade of experience in the energy industry. So thank you so much for joining and looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here and be able to contribute to this. In fact, this conversation that I'm participating in has spurred such a healthy dialogue in my own home about whether or not I'm categorized as a young person anymore. I choose to believe I'm young at heart, but we'll see how we all feel at the end of it. And as another side point, you may have picked up from my last name that it doesn't really sound too American, and it might not sound too Finnish. My ancestors way back once upon a time were Dutch, but I've been living in the United States for a solid 20 plus years now, and I'm excited to bring perspectives about a debatable young person in my experience working with a Finnish company. Neste. So the first things first, and I know this is very exciting and probably what you'll be quizzed on mostly afterwards, is the general disclaimer. And the short of this is, please don't make investment decisions based on what you hear from me today. I certainly wouldn't do that myself. So treat this as some fun, exciting information, but not something to make any investment or financial decisions upon. Over to a little bit of the story and starting it out. I'm not sure how familiar y'all are with Neste, but when I joined with them, I actually didn't know very much about them. And I've had the privilege now of helping shape their narrative for the North American and global market. And the short of it is Neste is in the business of fighting climate change. It started out as an oil and gas company about 70 plus years ago, post World War II in Finland, but 15 years ago is when Neste as an organization began transforming, moving away from oil products to become really focused on renewables. At the time, there were no regulations, there were no mandates, there weren't really even any clear markets for these renewable products that Neste was moving into. Climate change was, in many cases, still just an inconvenient truth. So this green swan transformation journey is really something exciting and unique to Neste and really set it apart for me. And today it's proudly one of the world's largest producers of renewable diesel, sustainable aviation fuel that was mentioned earlier, and renewable solutions for plastics, what I like to say, getting the fossil out of plastics, creating renewable polymers and chemicals that can replace the naphtha, the crude oil distillates that go into making these little small nurdles that are used to make the plastic things from our iPod cases to our computers. What really attracted me to Neste, though, is the company's purpose, which is to create a healthier planet for our children. So I've spent the past decade working in an integrated oil and gas company in a number of different roles: upstream, downstream, stakeholder engagement, scenario planning and modeling, venture capital. And I was always the odd cat out. I think my views and passions for life never really fit in with a slow, methodical approach that some of the integrated American oil companies bring towards how they conduct business. And that's why I was so thrilled about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago and change, to join Neste. I was actually in my previous life working on a project to address plastic waste, and we were cold calling other companies to get involved with this project, and I had the privilege of cold calling Neste. From that conversation, I heard all the cool things that the company were doing to address this plastic waste challenge, and the solutions were not incremental, they were exponential. These were real, deeply inspiring things that were happening on the ground. And I was sitting there blown away thinking, with all the billions of capital that these integrated oil and gas companies have, how can it be that this company I've never heard on, categorically mid-cap level, not as well financed as some of these big ones, are the ones driving this change in a real meaningful way? And as I kept digging in deeper and deeper, it came clear to me, this is where I want to be. This is a company that aligns with my values. And I think it is one thing to take away from me here, especially if you're an American who's curious about what it's like to work at a Finnish company or be ensconced and embedded in Finnish culture, is that it's more than just the kind of corporate culture, traditional stereotypical American, put your nose down, do your work, get a paycheck. It's a values driven, and it's fulfilling, and it's gratifying, and it's wonderful. And I think that's really what I'd want you to take away and keep that in your heart if you take any one thing from my little spiel here. But more on Neste's climate commitments, because I know we're interested in those things. So there's two unique pieces that Neste really focuses on, and one's our carbon footprint. And that's basically the things you call scope 1 and 2 emissions, the things we control, how we can reduce emissions from our own asset base and our own operations. We're doing this in advance of the goals set out in the Paris Climate Agreement, and we've actually been the first energy company to sign the Climate Pledge, Amazon's big coalition of partners who have agreed to achieve carbon neutral operations by 2040. This isn't just talk and ambitions, this is work and action. There's more than 90 projects, I think, now underway to achieve these goals, to get us to carbon neutral production. And we're continuing to look at other things in our value chain to increase the sustainability of how we source the raw materials that go into making our renewable products. The one that I'm probably more excited about, and I had no idea about it before I joined Neste, is the concept of a carbon handprint. And this is something Neste with VTT, a university in Finland, pioneered together. And it's really a very customer-centric and cool way to measure the impact you are having on your scope 3 emissions or your customers' emissions. So Neste's goal is to help our customers, companies that range from the likes of UPS to IKEA, Lando Basel to Amazon, to help them keep 20 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions out of the atmosphere by 2030. As of now, we're about halfway there. I think our last annual report said we've got about 10.9 million tons of CO2 kept out of the atmosphere just by providing our customers cleaner products. And if you kind of look at it from just a US perspective, I'm very proud to say over the past 5 years, we've helped thousands of American cities and businesses keep about 13 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions out of the atmosphere. This is a very important metric for us. It's what drives a lot of the change. And I think it shows that we're serious about this. This is real, meaningful climate action right now, making a difference, keeping emissions out of the atmosphere. But I also want to give a little bit of sense of who we are in the market here. So Nestle is a very spread out global company, 5,000 people globally. And really in the US, it comes down to about 500 people. We've gone from 5 years ago to 20 to 500. So the amount of growth potential for these companies like Nestle, Finnish companies like Nestle, who are building a new business model centered on sustainability is amazing. And it's a wonderful, diverse working environment. We have people from all walks of life. I think our leadership team here is 60 to 70% women. We have more than 40 languages spoken just in our office in Houston. And the best part is each person here shares the same view of creating a healthier planet for future generations and fighting climate change. I'll get to the customer part in a second, but just know that this isn't a niche thing. This is a fast-growing business. Renewable diesel, sustainable aviation fuel, renewable plastics. The message we hear is simple. Customers want it, they like it, and they want it faster. And that's really what our goal is. How can we keep pace with that? But then also just know that for a company like Nestle, headquartered in Finland, the US is a very important market. We do 33% of our business here, roughly. It's one of our main sources of feedstock. Is one of the main places where we sell our products. So we are very much embedded and view the US as a core part of our story going forward. What our role is in the future and what we really do here. So for those who are thinking about what a career in Nestle could look like or how you can work effectively with a Finnish company like Nestle, is we really focus on three things. Educating for the need for many solutions to reduce emissions. So we don't believe in a one size fits all. And I think that's a dangerous kind of narrow-minded, tribalistic approach you find in the United States. It's very easy to get into your favorite camp of pet solutions. And Nestle is really looking to break through that and inform based on sound science, life cycle analysis, that there is no one silver bullet. We need all things. We know we bring one piece of the puzzle, but we need electric, hydrogen, things we haven't even discovered faster. We do work on the policy side here. I think the Finnish side was covered very clearly earlier. In the US, we work on advocating for policies that put a price on carbon, are technology neutral, and don't pick favorites. Things like the SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel, tax credits in the Build Back Better Act, things like the low carbon fuel standard in the US West Coast, California, Washington, Oregon, and now progressing federally in Canada. These are policies we actively support because they create an even playing field. They allow us to effectively disrupt and compete fairly with the fossil fuel industry's 100-year-long era of dominance. And then we work to educate consumers, vehicle manufacturers, and any other interested stakeholders about this. We know it's difficult. We know that it's messy. We know renewable fuels, corporate transformations, the jargon of sustainability is hard to understand. And what Nestle has is a unique transformation journey. We want to take that journey, take our culture of take our culture of perseverance and grit and inspire others to follow in our footsteps and kickstart their own meaningful sustainability transformations. And I do want to just close out on a few practical things, just to keep you all maybe a bit more inspired. So if you think about what working at Nestle or with Nestle could look like, it does mean bold partnerships delivering meaningful action. On the far side, Titan Freight, one of the largest freight operators along the West Coast. Almost all their trucks now are running on renewable diesel. And this is delivering for them thousands of tons of GHG emissions reductions and cleaner air for communities where these trucks drive through. This is a big difference and has allowed them to really, as an end user, make a positive change in the way they wanted to do it. In the city of Oakland, we're collecting used cooking oils from restaurants across the city, about 200 to 300, and we're turning that into renewable diesel that's coming right back and going into the city's fleet. We're proving a circular economy can work, and we're doing this in collaboration with cities and restaurants across the value chain. And on the sustainable aviation fuel side, American Airlines is just one of the many industry partners we have that we're working with to accelerate the delivery of sustainable aviation fuel into wings faster. We have more than 1 million gallons of it into San Francisco International Airport. We're building an unparalleled network of SAF distribution with two of our U.S. partners here, Signature Flight Support and Avfuel. And these are things that are just fundamentally transforming or revolutionizing the way planes and aircraft are powered. So my short of it is there's a lot to be proud of. And if you're coming to work for a company like Neste or another Finnish company that is values driven, that is embedded in this concept of a sustainable future, there'll be no shortage of excitement. I've been so thrilled and been loving it every moment I've joined the company. Every day has been a new, wonderful adventure. And there's never been one where I woke up and said, I wish I had done something different with my life. Fully, I believe I'm where I'm supposed to be. And it's all thanks to the kind of unique culture, unique dynamics, and unique views that Neste and their Finnish heritage bring to the table. I think that can be it for me, and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Theodore. And so we have a time for maybe 2 questions for Theodore as well. If you have one you want to ask directly, feel free to raise your hand. Actually, pinpointing what you just said, Theodore, there's a question in the chat. What would you say are essential or high demand skills a young professional should develop if they want to transition into the sustainability sector? I think this means like professionally. So what can you give as tips?
Yeah, so I think the number one things you need to have are the right attitudes and values. So culture and belief matter more than skills. Many of the things that you need at Neste or similar-minded company, you'll learn there. And believe it or not, a lot of the skills you probably already have or have been taught are very applicable. At Neste, in our US offices, probably about 50 to 60% of the staff are people who have left big oil companies to come work for Neste. And these are people who used to do oil drilling, refining. They used to do manufacturing of complex engineering projects. Some of that might not naturally fit into the mindset of what should a renewable energy person have. But really what it takes is the competencies and skills to work together in a team, learn new things, be constantly curious, and actually care and believe in what you're doing. I've hired one new person on my team. I'm hoping to hire one more soon. And my message that I tell every person I hire is, we'll teach you what you need. We'll nuance what you need when you get here. But the number one thing I want to see is that you believe in what we're doing. And I think that's true across the entirety of the organization.
Thanks, very valuable. There's a very technical question. I'm reading it from the chat. This is specifically in relation to aviation fuels. Are there efforts to modify the combustion product ratio to reduce high altitude water vapor emissions, which contribute more to global heating than equivalent CO2 emissions? Can you share something on that?
I'm not 100% sure what ratio they're referring to, but I'm pretty confident that the only ratio I know of is the ASTM safety ratio that allows for SAF and fossil jet to be blended up to 50% right now. And that's very much focused for the people in the room around the safety of older aircraft engine. A lot of work right now with new aircraft engines, Boeing, Airbus, airlines working with us to test it, is how we get 100% SAF in engines faster. There's also some work coming out, some research from those same equipment manufacturers and airlines looking at contrail impacts. I haven't seen that report yet. I know it's coming out fairly soon, but I suggest keeping an eye out for it. And maybe you'll get some more details on how the water vapor emissions question is being looked at and addressed.
Thank you very much, Theodore. Thank you so much. And of course, if there's something you want to engage still on chat, feel free to do so. But thank you so much for sharing your time and views. And now we go to the next speaker, who is Kaiser Weinicka from UPM. She works as Senior Manager for Social Responsibility at UPM and is responsible for managing and developing UPM's social responsibility agenda. She has said her heart beats for promoting business respect for human rights, diversity, and inclusion. So thank you so much, Kaiser, and over to you.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and good afternoon from Helsinki, Finland, to everybody. Very, very glad to be here and to represent one other very traditional company from Finland. So I'm representing UPM. We have a very long history in Finland. So actually our first paper and pulp mill started already in the 1870s in Finland. And I also have a relevantly long history with the company myself. So I joined 15 years ago as a trainee, and have been since working in different positions within the company, dealing with sustainable business development and corporate responsibility, as we call it. And as we all know, the world has somewhat changed around us within the past 15 years, and I've been very lucky to see the transformation of this company from this kind of very traditional paper and pulp maker to a company with the strategy to create a future beyond fossils. So innovating and also investing in new solutions to replace fossil materials with renewable alternatives. And what I have also seen is really the increasing interest from our different stakeholders towards our actions on sustainability. And I have also been, I have always been quite inspired personally by the role companies can take in accelerating this change and action on these topics. So really happy to discuss this today with you. So our products are based on wood, and we constantly look for new and more smart ways to use wood for different end uses. And our Bio4 strategy is really to seek growth with more sustainable choices and really alternatives to fossil materials. As an example, we are currently building a biochemicals factory in Germany that is basically producing biochemicals out of wood. And these chemicals will then replace oil-based chemicals used in, for example, in textiles or in packaging. Maybe one very kind of an example that can resonate with you guys is that we are developing a wood-based Coke bottle together with Coca-Cola company at the moment. And for us, sustainability is something that has been always part of our strategy. So part of how and part of why we do business, and something that we feel that is there to guarantee a long-term growth and profitability for the company. And of course, that requires that we have very clear focus areas and targets for our work, and that basically then steer our actions in this respect. And we have always wanted to focus on the most material topics when it comes to our business. And of course, that is climate change and responsibility in our global supply chains. So we have more than 20,000 business-to-business suppliers all over the world, so over 80 countries. And as an example, then also what we decided to do this year in terms of our own people and social responsibility respect is to close all unexplained gender pay gaps globally. So really the work on sustainability needs to be very holistic, and that is what we want to do. But a couple of words about UPM as a company. So we are a global company with various end uses for our products. So packaging, hygiene products, communications, these are examples of our end uses. And construction, the bioplastics, so also very involved there. Biomedicals, even now one of the latest innovations in the radar. And when I look at our product portfolio, so currently somewhat 84% of our products are eligible for different kind of eco-labeling criteria. So this is clearly a topic that is a competition factor for us in the markets. But what we are also is a significant forest owner here in Finland, but also in Uruguay, and we do own some forest there in US. And sustainable forest management, and of course the full traceability of the wood that we are using is really the cornerstone of our business. And this also continues to be the topic that interests the most, let's say, on the basis of the questions that we are getting from customers. So really the most interesting topic from the customer point of view. Climate change, as we have seen today and already in the earlier presentation, so of course one of the most significant megatrends affecting also our business, and it's really, I guess, fair to say that forests are more important than ever, and we are all waiting to see progress and on the global scale on these topics, and some of us might even be a bit frustrated on the speed of action. But I think when we think about business, there is really hardly ever room for despair and only solutions. And we are also, like Neste, committed to the business ambition for 1.5 and also the net zero pledge for 2040 through the climate pledge. And this means in practice, of course, that we are committed to drive a science-based action on these measures and targets. And for us, this has been always very important that we have, let's say, proven data and proven methods, and we do also conduct ongoing research with external partners on to make sure that our approach is up to date. When discussing this kind of climate change related topics, what I always tend to say that it's also good to remember that it also has an effect on various other corporate sustainability topics on the agendas, like human rights risks or biodiversity, growing inequality in societies. So these are all topics we need to manage also in the companies in order to remain competitive. But if we think about the commitment that we have made, so what does it mean in practice for us? So of course, sustainable and climate positive forest management. So we manage our forest to act as carbon sinks and also take into account the biodiversity. So we have had our global biodiversity program for more than 20 years already. Of course,
Kaisa, sorry to interrupt,
yes.
Can you start wrapping up? Thank you so much. It's very interesting.
I will. And second of all, of course, it's about the efficiency of our own operations and also suppliers. So we have ambitious targets there as well. And last but not least, of course, we act through the new innovations and solutions that we are developing within the company and of course with external partners. So that is really the essence of the corporate responsibility and the strategy that we have in this respect. So I think I will end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kaisa. Yes, so if you have questions for Kaisa, you can of course write in the chat or feel free to really ask for the floor as well. So we can even hear your voice, maybe even see your faces. And by the way, there was a very nice invitation in the chat. I think that's from UC Berkeley. There is a Nordic Center over there, and they're looking forward to other young people interested who might be in Berkeley. So you have contact information from Robert over there. So that was very, very good. So then there is a question for you, Kaisa, in the chat. Kaisa, is there one sustainability initiative that UPM would consider to be its most innovative and impactful program or effort? A very good question. Over to you, Kaisa.
Yes, that's a very good one. I personally think that this is a very difficult question to answer. But of course, I think climate change, as we know, it has an enormous effect on our business. And I think that really through our strategy and through these new innovations, as well as at the same time taking care of the sustainable forestry practices. So that is really where we can impact the most.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think Justin has a question. So over to you, Justin.
Thank you. Hi, Kaiser. I work out of Minnesota and we build saunas for people, and we care a lot about the environment. And I would just love to sort of ask, do you use any like thermally modified woods or mass timber? When you talk about UPM, we're really caring a lot about sort of more innovative wood sources also for building things. Do you guys do any of that? And if so, what's the growth in that?
That's a good question. I'm not sure whether I'm able to answer that. I would say that we don't, but I'm not 100% sure. So I would need to come back to that to you to check with the best expert on this topic.
Great. I look forward to more conversation after.
Yes, very good. Thanks.
Wonderful. And I think there is something on sauna even in the chat. But now, thank you so much, Kaiser. Thank you for the very good question, Justin, as well. And now we have our Wärtsilä coming up as a speaker, and there's going to be after Wärtsilä still Young Leader Sports, very short presentation. And as we hope we are able to connect young people via this event as well. So hope you can stay over to listen to Tommy as well in the end. But now to Vesa. So Vesa is Head of Growth Americas for Voyage, which is a division of Wärtsilä. Vesa's areas of responsibility are the exploration of strategic maritime solutions and technological growth opportunities. And Vesa is, by the way, also the president of the Finnish American Chamber of Commerce in Greater Houston. Thanks so much, Vesa, and over to you. And if the others who are not speaking could turn off the cameras, that would be highly appreciated. And I will be turning off mine now. Thank you, Vesa.
My name is Vesa Koivuma. Just a little bit of background. I've been in Wärtsilä for almost 20 years. Originally, when I came and joined the company, I thought I'll be here for 3 to 5 years, but really have had 5 different careers. And Wärtsilä has always been a great place of learning and really utilizing all of the whole scale of your skills as an individual. And we focus very much on training of the people. So Wärtsilä has 2 different divisions. We have an energy and marine side. I'm on the marine side, and a little bit about the background on the, let's see if I can get the things moving over here. There it is. So we are a global leader in decarbonization of marine and energy markets. And we have almost 200 years of history behind us. And I work with 17,500 colleagues every day on these areas. So one thing we are very, very proud is that we actually have 139 nationalities even in Wärtsilä. This fluctuates sometimes a little over 140 and so forth, but it really shows that we are a local company. And in the US, we employ almost 1,000 people directly, but through our marine and energy projects, we actually we employ close to 10,000 people just alone in the US itself. So what is and how we describe our purpose: enabling sustainable societies through innovation in technology and services. And really, when we go to the topic of today, sustainability strategy and targets. So we have a very strong focus on decarbonization, both in marine and our energy segments. Of course, focusing on sustainability as a whole, high ethical standards, values and code of conduct program, defined processes, certified QEHS management system, and that means quality, environmental, health, and safety. So basically having certified in quality, environmental as a separate, and then health and safety as separate. Transparency, sustainability reporting according to GRA standards. And then we've been recognized both sides of the pond, the Dow Jones over here in the US side, and then Financial Times or FTSE in the European side. justified. So what is our commitment? We are set for 30. So Wärtsilä's goal by 2030 is to become carbon neutral in its own operations and provide product portfolio which will be ready for zero carbon fuels. And that's something where, for example, we work together with Neste in some segments around the world. And therefore, as we are talking about the fuels and carbon zero carbon fuels, of course, we have to focus on research and development. And I think this is an area that it's when we have students, is that one of the areas I'm engaged is to discuss with various different universities, how can we combine academia and the private sector to talk together. And sometimes it is actually a mix of academia or universities, public sector, and the private sector. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to engage over here in the US. We are doing research, as I mentioned already, the fuels, optimizing energy systems towards zero emission maritime. Outi mentioned earlier that maritime is something that really has to focus, and that we recognize that, and we are finding and searching resolution on that side. And then new technology and enable digital connected marine ecosystem. And I think that I'll come back to that because that's the area I'm very close to working with, and there's a lot of exciting things that most of the people don't associate Wärtsilä with. So let's start with the marine markets. What do you see is the market trends and drivers are not that different from your everyday life and things that concern everybody. And for us, urbanization and increased population creates issues that we recognize in maritime, and especially the health and the well-being of the seas and waterways is extremely important for us. We recognize that the advanced technology development, so in the past, it might have taken 10 years to adopt new technologies. Today, it could be in 10 months. Of course, the climate change, all these things are combined and sort of intermingled among themselves. And that creates some of the key points for us where we are driving sustainable shipping. So energy source and fuel flexibility. And this, for those who don't spend time on this area, is that we have had oil for, so we call it 100-year fuel. That most likely is not going to be a future. Future is going to be a mix of different fuels, even regional fuels, different fuels for the ocean crossing versus the inland waterways and so forth. But that's just not the one area that is where we're focusing. It's also energy efficient technologies, meaning there's a lot of things we can do better. We can do it much more. We have a better technology and better ways of managing these things, which also then comes to the issue of data. More data and better data you have, and then focus data, better you can do, and more efficiently you can do it. And International Maritime Organization has set two targets. There's a 2030 and 2050. And the 2030 target is basically have a 40% reduction on greenhouse gas levels from the 2008 level. And that's the fleet wise. We see that there's a technology today to even start reaching and really to be able to reach this goal. Whereas the 2050 sustainable fuels and advanced technologies to reduce 50% of greenhouse gases, that's basically of total annual emissions. And just to give an example, that would mean that today's vessels would have to reduce 85% of their CO2 emissions on that side. And I'm saying, Suvi, are you giving me an indication to? All right.
Yes, thanks.
So the thing is, the one thing about us is that we as a company are in so many different levels, and then I had a hard time to cover things. So what I'm going to do now is there's three areas that in marine business, there's the marine power, which is our core, voyage where I'm part of, and then the marine systems. On the voyage side, If you look, one example is port traffic and management, which is just in time. You've seen the discussion about Port of LA and delay of vessels. We see that if you can make the ports function like airports, then you can actually be much more efficient, and therefore you waste less energy and create less pollution. Then on the marine power side, I'm going to go through quickly these slides, but one thing on that side is a fuel flexibility, really to embrace the future fuels, but also utilizing today's technology like batteries and combine that together. And then on the marine systems, there's 3 different businesses within there, but the gas solutions have a biogas process that takes anything from the organic waste on the farm waste and food waste, and actually can create biogas itself. And then last but not least, on our energy side, which has energy optimizing solutions, for years we've been driving this sort of vision of 100% renewable energy future. And we see that there's a lot of things we can do to reduce absolutely the CO2 emissions already in today's world. So one thing I want to leave everybody sort of last note is that both in marine and energy side, we see that there's today's technology can solve a lot of problems. Of course, certain things we have to invent in the future. And I'm going to give people the last thing over here. Stay in touch. You can reach out us through various different social medias, and you can use the QR code to get on our website on that side. But Wärtsilä has so much to offer, and there's so many opportunities in different, not only in the US, but globally, that I'm really excited to be part of this first session, and I'm more than happy to engage with everybody. You can find me on LinkedIn and so forth. So.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vesa. I see clapping hands there by the audience. And there is a question for you in the chat. Is Wärtsilä investing in the technology to retrofit large vessels, which primarily use dirty fuels like bunker C, with propulsion systems that are far cleaner, albeit more expensive? So there is a very knowledgeable audience today. Vesa, do you have views on that?
Well, that's just very logical that retrofit is a significant part of the future. If we think about the vessels of 2050, it looks and sounds very, very long time ahead. But the reality is that those vessels are built today. And one of the issues is that why waste the hull and the raw materials that I use it, where you can retrofit and have a longevity of the fuel. So we have to look at the industry as a whole of where we can find the capabilities and the right solutions for decarbonization.
Thank you so much, Vesa. And I think you mentioned you can be found on LinkedIn. Also, Theodore was sharing his LinkedIn information there and so on. So it's great that, of course, you will be around. If there's something more in the chat, then there's a possibility, of course, that's still an option. But we'd like to now move on to the final speaker. Thank you very much for Vesa and Wärtsilä. And now Tommy Flanagan is going to give a very short, a couple of minutes presentation on the Young Leaders Board. And this is, of course, very, very important on how you can keep in touch. Young Leaders Board is our main partner in organizing this event, and we're thrilled to cooperate with you. And by the way, future events are certainly coming up, so stay tuned. But now I'll just give it to you, Tommy. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sylvie. I hope everybody can hear me and see my screen. I think there's not much more for me to say at this point. I think the turnout today speaks for itself, for the level of interest that there is out there for this topic, for Finland in general, and kind of the vibrancy of the Finnish American interested community. So my first task that I want to do today is obviously to thank from Finlandia Foundation and the Young Leaders Board, Ambassador Hautala today for your new and refreshing kind of focus on the Finnish American community. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think today's event really shows that. So Ambassador Hautala, thank you so much. Suvi Järvelä-Hagström, thank you so much, Head of Cultural Affairs at the Embassy, for working with us on getting this put together and the planning. Also to Susanna Schillman, who is currently interning there at the Embassy, who's put a lot of work into this as well. And of course, to Anne-Marie, Pastor.
Perfect. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yes. And I just want to go through who we are as a board today. Great. Okay. So we're just going to finish up here quickly by showing you who our board is. We are 8 Finnish Americans throughout the United States. We're currently just about a year old. We were kind of called into existence by the Finlandia Foundation. They wanted to focus on some young leadership outreach, which Anne-Marie talked to us about a year ago. And since then, we've been able to actually connect and partner with the embassy as well. So you can see just from this by one of our members, Laura Tuiskula, that we kind of make up a diverse cross section. Generation Americans, some of us are more, have more generations in the US. Some of us have both Finnish parents, one Finnish parent, and we work across different sectors. And really what we want to do today is capture the interest that you have all shown and connect with you. So you can always reach out to us. Here, I want to show you this before people start leaving. Our email address, you can feel free to reach out to us. We want to connect with you. We want to kind of see where the Finnish interested people are. Country, you can join our LinkedIn. That's a great place for us to keep in touch. Also, you can see this event was advertised over our LinkedIn group, so you can also find more events to come. Those of you who are interested, I wanted to put up our mission and our vision for you. Basically, we are young Finnish Americans who are hoping to bridge our past, building from our past, bridging to the future, how we can connect kind of the narratives of Finnish immigration to the United States, where that comes from, but with a vision toward the future, identifying new opportunities for young people across the country. So the other members on the board, if you want to put your cameras on so people can see you, I think that would be good now before people do leave. And we'll put this slide up if people do want to reach out to us at any point. Again, thanks to the embassy, thanks to the Young Leaders Board and Finlandia Foundation. And we do look forward to keeping in touch with you all.
Thank you so much, Tommy. I think next time we'll start with you. But it was so wonderful to hear how people can stay in touch with you. And we really hope that this event, one of the main target is really to get people connected and continue our conversations also in the future. So warm thank you, of course, to Finlandia Foundation's Young Leaders Board, for Finlandia Foundation and Anne-Marie Pastor. Of course, big thanks, Susanna, for helping here at the embassy. And of course, also, first and foremost, to our wonderful speakers. So Outi, Theodore, Kaisa, Vesa, and of course, Tommy as well. So thank you very much for sharing your views and your time. And like there was some information on the chat, how you can keep in touch. And we really hope to see you in our next event. So you can stay in touch with the embassy and with Young Leaders Board. And there will be a recording of this event that will be shared most likely later on. And really, thank you so much for our audience for joining. It has been wonderful to have you here, and feel free to keep in touch. Thank you very much, everybody.